Welcome, everyone, exactly to the last day that starts with the parallel sessions. And this is the session about approaches to design regional carbon certification schemes. So we will start with a few presentations and then we'll have a panel discussion. We are building on some of the work that has been done in Credible 1 around developing fit-for-region carbon farming and carbon credit schemes. And in this session, we will explore initiatives that take different approaches to design carbon projects. Exactly after a round of a brief presentation on the respective initiatives, our 5 speakers will contrast different approaches and discuss how monitoring and certification methodologies, emerging standards, and governance frameworks can enable robust, locally adapted, yet interoperable soil carbon markets that work for farmers, regulators, and private sector. We're going to start with Dr. Ralph Rosenbaum, senior researcher at IRTA, the Institute of Agri-Food Research and Technology in Barcelona. I'll let you better introduce yourself, Ralph, and take over.
Thank you, Sonia. Perfect. Thank you, Sonia. No, I think the introduction was perfect. Thank you. So good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here first hour. I'd like to talk a little bit and very briefly about what are we doing? Why are we doing this? I think the most important part is why think about a regional certification scheme and what it entails. Just first, I'd like to try. Can we move the bar a little bit, perhaps, because it's gonna cover all my headlines. Thank you. So just to position ourselves a little bit, Catalonia is in the northeast of Spain. It has a local government, which is important, with some autonomic decision power. So that's in terms of political structure is important because the political motivation for the scheme is coming from the local government, essentially. And I also wanted to say a few things about the soil. It's Mediterranean soil, which is characterized by being very alkaline. That's an important part. Its clay content is around 20 to 30% in the middle range. It's very, very poor in carbon, soil organic carbon, as you can see here. Technology. So it's very poor in carbon, essentially. It's also very dry, obviously, because Mediterranean regions are, our region is semi-arid. And it's, of course, with climate change, everybody knows it, it's getting worse. So we've had very severe drought problems. Excellent. Thank you very much. Very severe drought problems. So average stock content, 4.6 kilogram per square meter. That's really not a lot. If you go to northern soils, you are in the 20s something. So it's very low organic material contents. The context from a policy perspective and a little bit the timeline of events. So in 2003, the Catalonian government announced that at the COP28 in Dubai, that they will launch this regional climate credit system for 3 main pillars: forestry, agrarian soil, and blue economy. It's a local system. So we are talking about the agrarian soil part. Okay, not working. Then also in 2023, the Catalonian government made this official with a government agreement that establishes the creation of this system. And then things started to be rolled out slowly. And they asked us, actually, my institution, IRTA, is a research institute, which is a little bit like JRC. We are the technical branch, let's say, of the local government for the agricultural ministry, you could say, of Catalonia. So they asked us to take a look into these things for the agrarian soil part. So we looked into an analysis of certification programs, 18 in total, with 25 different methodologies. I'll show you just a little brief view because we could spend hours on that. This informed very much our understanding of how these schemes work, what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, and if it makes sense to create a regional one and how. That was really quite essential for that. Okay, that's really not working. Maybe we need to go back to analog. it's okay. Where was I? Here. So the mapping of the regional eco-certification ecosystem also was an important part to identify roles and actors that are actually currently active. Of course, this is really very volatile. It changes all the time. But to get a glimpse of what's happening right now already, let's say in the field. We also created a regenerative practices experimental fields work because we want to understand which are the practices that work, which are the practices that don't work or are counterproductive, depending on the crop, depending on the local conditions. Because even within Catalonia, you have still quite a variability of landscapes and of pedoclimatic conditions. So this variability also we want to consider. And we also are working and still are working on the creation of a database with local soil data. So the carbon stocks are there, but also pH and other important parameters to actually feed into all kinds of calibration exercises we will have to do for the creation of this system. And now 26, 27 is the time of the development and hopefully deployment of the system for agrarian soils. Let's have a quick look into some of the results. So we structured it with the classical quality. They're not called quality criteria anymore, but they used to, and I really like the acronym. So we started with eligibility. I'm not going to present eligibility here, but the next one would be permanence. So we saw that we had different kinds of tools. Tools meaning, is it a buffer pool or is it a risk discount, for example, that they used to deal with permanence here, apart from the permanence rules, which are fixed not by the methodology, but by the certification scheme. And you can see that it's quite a variability here in terms of whether specified or not specified permanence tools. Most of them require a tool. Most of them work with a buffer pool, where you put aside certified carbon, whereas risk is also putting away carbon, but without certifying it. That's the essential technical difference. A fixed and variable discounts also was quite spread between them. And then uncertainty is another kind of discount, which has to do with the uncertainty of the quantification, essentially, in the MRV system. And most of them required an uncertainty discount. Quantification itself, multiple or single approaches, mostly modeling and sampling, sometimes still remote sensing. So it was quite distributed between unique and multiple. Sampling was required by 68% and modeling was required by 58%. The numbers don't always add up to 100% because sometimes they can require modeling and sampling. So this is why you don't get to 100 necessarily here. Also for the project, let's say definition project building, it was varied here which methodologies were used. Baseline type between fixed and dynamic. I think it's intuitive that most will be fixed, but actually a few also worked with a dynamic baseline. And then registry means the history. How many years of history do you need for the project definition here? And some of them actually had 10 years of requirement, which is really quite a lot. Most of them worked with the more typical, let's say, 3 to 5 years. And then the numbers down here, I'm not going to have the time to go into details, just saying that not all of these criteria or sub-criteria were actually defined in all the methodologies. This is what the numbers down here mean, that sometimes only 24 of the 25 or 20 of the 25 actually specified that criterion. Additionality looks quite distributed as well. So most of them, of course, require it with different tools, internal, external, or a mix of them. And sometimes also just meeting requirements is just a checklist in terms of additionality. Financial, legal, new practice or uncommon practice, locally uncommon practice, or other kinds of criteria were distributed in that way. I'm going to speed up a bit. That's important. 56% had a retroactive compensation for pioneers. That's something we wanted to put out there, because it's something that we're finding very important, because there are quite a few of pioneers in Catalonia actually. So how to get them on board also in the system and have them benefit. Sustainability criteria is probably the weakest point. It's well known. It's nothing new. It's the weakest point of pretty much all methodologies. Some of them have minimum requirements. Most of them work with the do no significant harm framework here. Some don't even specify that. And some of them also work with SDGs, requiring at least 3 SDGs to be covered in sustainability. Now, to close the quick overview, what's the goal behind like I showed you, there is a political willingness or political motivation, but what's the goal that we can perceive with that? So the idea and part of the motivation is to optimize economic returns for farmers. How to do that? Very quickly and very simple. Try and go for, it's very ambitious, try and go for high quality, low uncertainty quantification, so you can get a good price on the market and maximize the amount of carbon and co-benefits actually that you actually can certify. You calibrate it with local primary data, which is I think one of the unique points and the unique chances that we have, being like geographically limited. Low cost for the farmers, because it's a public scheme, so we can optimize a little bit on that end. Also, accessibility and support for the farmers can be really much taken into hands and help there. And then tooling, assessment, grouping is a very important part, because we have a lot of very small farms. The certificate, very important point, must be interoperable between different financing schemes. So we're not thinking necessarily only about carbon markets. It's also insetting and other financial schemes. It should ideally, and let's see if we can convince the politicians about that, should also be helpful for regional subsidies. When do you give them like outcome-based regional subsidies? Perhaps in the frame of insetting, create new, shorter, more local supply chains with the local products and low carbon. Scale, the objective, of course, is to scale transition towards more generative or agroecological, whatever you want to call them, practices, and finance this transition here. And then adapt it to local specificity with local knowledge, local data, and probably create a local voluntary market that pays a little bit more than the international market price. But if demand is not high enough, which is a bit of an uncertain part, we see that with the forest certification that's already working, then still it should be connectable to international carbon markets. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ralph. And indeed, we're going to touch on many of these aspects during our discussion. And now I would welcome Markus Steffen. So if we can change the presentation, great. So Markus is the group lead on soil fertility and climate at the Research Institute of Organic Agriculture, FIBUL. So if you want to introduce your research, thank you.
Yeah, good morning. My name is Markus Steffens, and I'm sorry, I'm feeling not too well. Maybe I have to sit down between the presentation. Yeah, so we are having local compensation project in Switzerland, and to skip. And yeah, so the first slide is it's an introduction. So when we are talking about the whole carbon farming story with the agriculture industry and soil science or science in general included, I'm always reminded of the title of, this old movie, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and you can decide who is who, because we could skip now. The question is, or not the question, so there in green are now the positive points. So I think everybody agrees that it's that we have great potentials for climate mitigation and adaptation in agriculture. And it's nice that the public and the private sector are supporting climate mitigation and food security. And from the soil science or science perspective in general, it's interesting to get a better understanding or systemic understanding of ecosystems. On the other side, of course, we can have the effect that in the end we have payments taking place, but we will have no effect, or we could have no effect on the climate change. There's always the risk of greenwashing, and as a scientist, it's always, or have quite many times appearing that people say, why are you complicating this obvious win-win situation? And so just remember the title. And we are now in Switzerland. The project was initiated by the Ebenrhein, that's the cantonal agricultural and school and advisory service. So they initiated it. And that's the specificity of the project. We have a regional cantonal bank who want to compensate in the region in the agriculture. And then we are people, so Research Institute of Organic Agriculture, and we are doing the scientific support. And contributing are 55 farms with more than 700 plots and more than 1,100 hectares. So here you see there's Basel, so the city of Basel, and then France and Germany, and in black, these are the participating plots. Yeah, some specific about the region for 500,000 inhabitants, 500 square kilometers, blah, 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 so many things. And quite interesting is in Switzerland, climate change has already taken place, like everywhere else, but it's quite strong in Switzerland, so it's already 2.1 degrees since 1864. Yeah, and the concept of the project is, of course, you know about it. So it's CO2 removal through soil organic matter increase through improved organic matter management. And specific is also that we have not only measurement-based, but also participation-based. So if the farmers participate, they already get a payment. And then they get a payment for increasing soil organic matter. So at the beginning, they get 100 euro or Swiss franc per hectare for participating. And then after 3 years, so in the first year is a sampling campaign, after 3 years was another sampling campaign. And so in the next winter, we have the final sampling campaign. And they get around 100 euro per ton of CO2, which is quite a lot. And something specific. So we have advisors visiting all the farms at least every 3rd year. So in the beginning, after 3 years and after 6 years, and they are developing with the farmers together a soil organic matter build-up plan. And we have a commercial company doing the sampling campaign like this. And we do on each plot, that's the typical Swiss official sampling scheme. So you have 20 points measured with a GPS, and you bulk the material to have one representative sample per plot. We sample from 0 to 20 centimeters, one sample per plot. And we sample always in winter, so between November and March. But you can imagine 700 plots in the whole region. It's already quite demanding to organize this one. And the other thing is we have to sample before fertilization, or at least 3 weeks after fertilization. And then we had some points. So the one thing is that is soil organic carbon. So we let it analyze in a commercial lab. And this is all the samples which we also measure for quality assessment. So every 50th sample is measured at FIBE. And this is the correlation between the commercial lab and our lab. And that looks quite nice. But if you go to the different years where we measured, you see that the correlation between the labs is shifting. So it's not that precise. It's fine for advisory services and so on, but if we want to calculate the exact amount of carbon, it's at least putting a discount, or you have to put a discount on it. And we have a systemic annual variability between the labs. And then we also we analyzed bulk density. It's quite complicated, or it's not possible to find a commercial company who is doing the classic determination of bulk density in all the plots. So we did it with a master thesis. And we selected 100 representative plots and did the classic analysis. So in red, now you see the ones where we analyzed bulk density. Yeah, that's the way how we did it. And then we used an estimator for all of the plots, from the 100 to the 700 plots. And what you see here now is we assessed the effect of the stone content, because bulk density determination, that's fine. And many companies offer a way to determine bulk density, but if you have a small soil auger, you don't get the stones. And here you see now the one-to-one line. That would be if you have no stones. But if you have samples with stones, you see the dots above the line. And so that is the overestimation of the stock, because the stones are not considered. And so you see that's now the stock, and you can have overestimations, quite strong overestimations, so 50% higher stocks than you would actually have. We also considered, or not considered, we calculated or estimated the sequestration potential. And for all of the plots, we have a mean sequestration potential of around 7 tons of carbon per hectare. But you see the curve, of course, there you have a few with a lot, and some also have a large potential, are beyond the potential, so they also have the potential to lose carbon. And now this is the data from the resampling campaign after 3 years, and this is the increase, the carbon sequestration in tons per hectare and year. And so you see the red line, that's the 0. And so in many of the plots, you have an increase. So with 1 ton per year, and you have even high numbers for 6 or 7 tons per year, which is actually too much from an economical perspective, I would say. There are some here, but this is, I would say, about measurement, but all of these are quite high and above what I'm expecting generally. So we have a median sequestration of 3.2 tons per carbon, tons of carbon per hectare in 3 years, and this equals to 1 ton of carbon per hectare. We have a long-term trial in the region, and there we have a mean sequestration of 100 kilograms. So in the plots, we have 10 times more carbon sequestration. So I'm not sure about at least permanence and so on. In total, we had more than 4,000 tons of carbon sequestered. Carbon, so CO2 is times 3.6. So far to the results, and now we selected 50 representative plots we should measure every year so that we get an idea about the temporal development. And here's what you see. So these are 50 plots on 10 farms, and that's the development from 21 to 25. So in the 5 years which we sampled, and you see that you have some increase at the beginning, and then it's constant more or less, and on some plots it's decreasing again. So of course we can also not say that it's stable for longer periods of time. And if we measure every 3rd year, just we don't have any idea where we are, if it's going up or down and so on. So for us, the standard operating procedures, of course, this is an MRV, so that we have a unified MRV is very important. We need also quality control system for the elemental analysis. What we see is that between the labs, you have quite a high discrepancy for the carbon analysis. The map background information, the better I would put, because we had a lot of information from the GIS about the different soil types, so we could select representative sites and so on. But also for example, if you determine bulk density, estimations are very inaccurate, so you should at least consider this one. And for us, it's a great knowledge gain. So we learn a lot about the region and so on, but it's expensive because no one is going to pay normally a project like this with this amount of scientific advisory part. And so for me, the question is, maybe it's the wrong or exactly the right place. So for me, the question is still, are measurement-based payment schemes, measure-based payment schemes more efficient? So if we not focus on the accumulation and the measurement, but more the measure what the people are doing on the plot, is less expensive, so more efficient. And generally, for me, the question is, do we really want to compensate CO2 emissions in agriculture? Because if we consider additionality, most, or at least except biochar, maybe all of the measures that the farmers are doing would not count. And permanence is also, we cannot tell which part of the carbon which was sequestered is permanent. So we already see that it's going down. We also did fractionation on it. We do infrared spectroscopy to understand the fractions in more detail. But in general, of course, we learn a lot about sustainable soil management. Yeah, thank you very much.
Now we continue with Sam. So if we can put this presentation on. So we have Sam Visser, climate project expert at ZLTO, Smart Carbon Farming Interreg. Over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, my name is Sam Visser. I am from the Netherlands. So we're going through all kinds of countries here, and I'm very excited to bring you to the Netherlands in these coming minutes. I'm just waiting on the presentation and see if the clicker works. But I work for the farmers organization is based in the south of the Netherlands, and we have already from 2020 carbon farming projects, and it basically started with a group of farmers that said we just want to try this, and we started out with 15 farmers and went from there. And since we have increased the amount of carbon farming project, and these are projects where they get paid for their effort. So we are very happy to have these examples. We learned a lot. I'm the one who goes to the farms every year and accounts for the measurements that I have taken. I will be showing you a little bit more about that too. I'm not able to do that now because there's no presentation.
I can show it like this meanwhile. If you want to switch the order with someone who has a PowerPoint, maybe I can go and solve.
The remaining ones are all.
Yeah, so that we don't lose time, just because I have to go and ask for a password for converting. I can't. No, no problem. Just it only has this.
Sì. Non si può condividere.
No, non posso.
Se la condividi.
Proprio una proposta che non hanno anche perché non.
Come lo condividi? Sì?
Se vuole switchare vado a chiedere.
No, perché sono in PDF mi sembra quelle che sono. Marcus e Ralph sono i due che hanno presentato, no? Quella è la... Okay. Però non vediamo neanche, neanche in questa modalità la vediamo, però. Ok, però nel frattempo la puoi mettere anche se si vede il...
non so
però quando si...
infatti. Cambio. No, but the other one.
It's sharing, but we don't see. I don't really know. Sorry, we have a little technical problem. It looks like she's sharing, but we don't see it. So she went to ask for technical support. 2 minutes. There should be try several times.
It's in Italian, so I have
You're right. I didn't even notice, of course.
Sharing windows versus sharing screen. Whatever you put in screen is still going to show. So this is different.
La stai condividendo fuori, ma Like okay. Which is
All right, everyone, we can continue. I'll make it quick so we can continue with the other presentations. So you guys have been able to look at the map and see where this country is located, but I already told you. So we are based in the south of the Netherlands. We have around 13,000 members, all kinds of different farming, arable farming, mostly dairy farming, fruit. We do lobby projects and consultancy. Yep, thank you. Can you put up the next slide, please? ZLTO is also part of the Smart Carbon Farming project, which is a project surrounded about carbon farming. And thank you. We gain a lot of knowledge, and it's together with 5 other countries, which you can see there. Why actually carbon farming? As I told you before, we had a group of 15 farmers who really wanted to start on the carbon farming. And we said, that's very great. And they wanted to improve their soil quality. But we also want to make a business case out of it. We want you to be paid for your effort. And also they realized that it's an increase in biodiversity and resilience against climate change. In a previous project, we were discussing a lot on the methodology, how to do this, because it was not so known yet. And that project developed a tool. And also, that's what I will talk about more, small-scale projects connecting local farmers and local buyers. There was also a policy recommendation then presented to the EVP of the EU, Frans Timmermans, which was presented by farmers. And an intermediate platform connecting those local parties. The one in Belgium is called Claire, and the one in the Netherlands is called Go to Positive. And that's the one I will be talking about. So what is Go to Positive? It's a platform connecting buyers and farmers. ZLTO acts as an intermediate. So as I said before, I'm the one who goes to the farmers and register all the methods they apply. And then we take it to the buyers, basically. Currently, we have 40 farmers, 13 buyers, and almost 8,000 certificates sold. And the price per certificate is 140 euros per ton of CO2. That's 40 euros for the measurements and the samples, and 100 euros goes to the farm. I've seen, if you, for example, compare it to the ETS, this is much higher, but this is the amount that we think the farmers should get for their effort. It's 70 based on activities and 30% based on results, and that's the 30% they get in the end after the final measurement. An example of how we calculate this, we actually use a tool from Wageningen University, which is a Rothsay model, and you put in the basic scenario in where you implement no extra effort, and you put a scenario 2, we call that a carbon plan, and you can see the difference between how much is happening in a normal practice and how much is additionally. And this is also where I'm tapping in a bit on the role as an advisor. I also work in the project Climate Smart Advisor. Is when I'm sitting at the farmer's table, I'm explaining what's in this model. And I'm also saying, okay, in this year, you can change something, you can sequester X amount of carbon. And that's a very important step to make the farmers understand what's going on, because a lot of things that we are discussing here is abracadabra, but they need to understand it as well. So it's a very important thing. So this is just an example of a field where you see the red line, which is the base scenario, and the blue line, which is the new scenario. And approximately 0.5 to 1.5 ton of CO2 is average for our farms. 2 is possible, 3 also sometimes. I saw it also in the previous presentations, but it's really high. Now we can talk about the buyers a little bit. Why do they want it local? These companies that buy the certificates, they have sustainability high in their standards, and they want to do it locally, and that's how they are connected to the farmers. They visit the farmers almost every year. We have a meeting where farmers and buyers meet up, and we talk about how the year has been going, so you create close bonds. And also these farmers have a story to tell, and that's very important to tell that story. So here's just a few examples of meetings that we've had in the past. And this is also that the news is taking up, and I think it's also very important that these stories are also told in the news about these kind of examples. Many times it's the other way around, but we have very good examples. And this is basically an example of a certificate that's being handed out for one of those companies. All right, that was my short presentation on the Dutch example. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sam. And we are continuing with Lorenzo right now. I hope another PDF is not a problem. So we have Professor Lorenzo Furlan, Agricultural Innovation Director at Veneto Agricoltura. Over to you.
Thank you, Sonia. I'm trying to recover time. Maybe. Okay, I'm presenting on behalf of our working group, including colleagues reported here. Many, I can't mention all of them today to save time. Anyway, this is a long story. I'm not going to tell all the story. Started more than 20 years ago when we realized that our conventional current agriculture is not sustainable. And it's not sustainable mainly due to the fact that carbon is going down everywhere. And based on this assumption, we started with many trials, put it together factors with the potential of increasing organic matter in the soils. And all the factors we selected were factors, science-based factors with a potential show in scientific papers with many papers. Second one, I have this one. Thank you very much. Thank you. And so we are lucky. We have 3 pilot farms, more or less 600 hectares of cultivated land. So we have a great potential to study at full scale our packages. And the second assumption is that we are working with holistic packages. After the selection, we are working with the holistic packages. And we have divided our pilot farms in the homogeneous areas according to precision farming agriculture principles. And so in each homogeneous areas, we have implemented the conventional package and the sustainable package. Now I'm going to describe so we have many replications in 3 farms year by year. So a huge number of replications. So if the sustainable package is working well, it should be clear. Also from a statistical point of view. And this is the sustainable package, suitable rotation, no plowing, science-based sign-based factors. Prompt soil depunction, this is a key point. We are starting with very poor soils. So we have all the defects at the very beginning and all the problems there. So the risk of failing is huge. So what you have to do to start well, because if you don't produce biomass, you cannot get anything. So you need to produce biomass. So you need to have the advantages of plowing without having the defects, the side effects of plowing. So the deck compactor taking up the soil, reducing bulk density, can create the suitable conditions without burning up the organic matter in the soil. And this was a key point for us in our package. Continuous soil cover with the cover crops, precision farming with variable rate, substantial reduction of macrogranular soil insecticides or insecticide-coated masses. That means that you cannot increase biodiversity doing all these things and at the same time bombing the soil with pesticides. You have to put all together, a holistic approach. And the cultivation practices to reduce the risk of soil compactation. That means you cannot use the monster tractors. We have a limit, not more than 5 tons in random territory per axle. The load we try to use in our experimental fields, but at full scale. So this package is the package suitable for stopping carbon loss in the soil, and started with a slow increase, but slow. In our data, unfortunately, says that this process is very slow. And what to do to accelerate the increase of carbon and produce quickly carbon credits? You can add agroforestry. This is in Sasserami farm. We have this plan. And the incorporation of good quality organic matter. Good, not liquid materials, as I suppose you can understand me. And so stop and start with the slow increase and accelerate the increase in all package. And from these experiments, I don't have time to report to you about the results, but we have published something and I can give you all the references to go inside. And we have prepared the certification scheme. We are going to submit to the European Commission as soon as possible. Crop rotation, no soil layer inversion in the soil, minimal or no tillage, according flexible. Another key point in our experience, you have to be flexible. Agriculture is the most difficult work in the world, much more than the surgeon. And that means that if you're not flexible, minimum when you have some soil condition, no tillage, only when you have the suitable condition for no tillage. Not philosophy, but flexibility, and fix some very important pillar, no plowing, but flexible for all the rest. And keep residues, continuous soil cover with the cover crops and residues, progressive reduction of chemical nitrogen fertilizer to protect the carbon, the organic matter we are increasing in the soil, and the substantial reduction of chemical soil insecticides and hopefully also fungicides very soon. We have very good results from our trials in the farms, because we need to protect biodiversity, to protect carbon and producing the carbon credits. It's, for example, almost all the seeds we are planting, maize seeds, are coated with fungicides. And the plants have a relationship with the soil biodiversity with the soil, with the many fungi, with a lot. And the first things we are doing is killing them. It's stupid. We have to find other solution. And based on this, we have developed 3 main certification schemes in the framework of a general one. And this one is the basic ACFO, means holistic flexible agriculture. Conservation agriculture means crop rotation, what we have seen before, and optional the other ones. Agroforestry package, we have the plants. It's clear that the plants are producing carbon credits. It's very difficult to deny it. So we can be more flexible. And we have crop rotation compulsory, substantial reduction of carbon soil insecticides to protect biodiversity, and agroforestry. But if you do all these things, if you implement all the other practices, you can accelerate more and to get more, and you can get more carbon credits also from the very beginning of this certification scheme implementation. And we want to be inclusive. And so we have an organic package. We have devoted to organic farming, and where we permit a shallow plowing, but we have a compulsory, and they do anyway. Crop rotation, continuous soil cover, keep crop residues, and so on. So this is a softer package, but in cases where you can find a potential since the very beginning of the implementation. And this is just to show you how we think to be inclusive. What inclusive, because this is our benchmark is conventional agriculture. And what we know is year by year, conventional agriculture is decreasing the organic matter content of the soil. This is beyond any doubt. Science has demonstrated beyond any doubt. That means that I have an initial stock of a field where I'm going to implement the certification scheme. If I start applying that scheme, I'm avoiding the loss of the organic matter. This is a carbon credit. This difference is the first carbon credit I'm getting from the certification scheme. That means that if you are a good organic matter farmer, and you are the best, you already have a 4% your soil. If you keep doing that, you are granted of 2 per thousand each year of carbon credit. So this difference we estimated as a baseline 2 per thousand per year is the first carbon credit I'm giving to the organic farmer or anyone starting with a good organic matter content. But if you do much more and you implement the basic package, and if you apply good organic matter or you have agroforestry, you can get much more. In this case, 5 per thousand. We have guessed, and you can add this one to this one, and you have to calculate. I don't have time now, but it means 1.50 credits per year. So we have many simulations. I don't have time. And final things we have to demonstrate according to the regulation. And if we have to demonstrate, we are doing this with the lowest cost possible. And this means that for most, if your rotation, you can check at a very low price. soil cover you can put, and so on and so on. Satellite and drones you can get at a low cost. All the information you need to demonstrate the proper implementation of the certification scheme. But the key point is the carbon content of the soil. And okay, we have seen the only things we are sure is that we have to die. All the rest is unseen. But if technology now can give us the possibility of assessing carbon content on a relative base. If you take many measures with the drones, and so we are working on this, we are studying with the university this approach, we can have many measurements and we can demonstrate year by year the trend on a relative base. And if add this approach with the classical measurements, we can get the demonstration of a carbon content increase at a lower price than the traditional approach. And okay, when we discuss, we can describe more. This is keep in touch with us, and we can collaborate. The big protocol is available for everyone who likes to work on the carbon credits.
Thank you. And now, last but not least, we welcome Laurence Pelletier, Carbon and Sustainability Lead at Chrysalab, that came all the way from Canada for our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. And thank you all for being present at the early morning, last day of the Congress. So today we will shift a bit for the last presentation. So you hear about certification scheme around Spain, Netherlands, and also Italy. Now we're gonna fly over Canada, and I will share some insight that we have around the federal and the provincial, at the provincial level, so compliance carbon market. Okay, and my name is Laurence Pelletier, and I work at Chrysalab. We are an end-to-end MRV provider, but today I won't discuss about super technology. It's the in situ spectroscopy, but don't hesitate to look at our website about what we are doing. So the context of Canada, so it will be helpful for you to have some insight about what we are doing in Canada, and especially also in Quebec, from where I'm from, and you can hear by my accent that I'm not French, I'm from French Canada. And we develop over the times a specific scheme for carbon, but it's not that easy, that scheme. And the federal, so we have different entities that are working together. At the first layer, we have a federal level that are producing the protocol. And also we have provinces that can produce also their protocol. At the federal level, at this moment, if we look specifically at the agricultural land management, we have a protocol under development, but it's not there yet under a public consultation, and it takes time. You have to acknowledge that having federal protocol, it takes several years to build, because you want to have the most robustness in terms of scientific element inside their methodology. So the soil enrichment protocol is supposed to be on public consultation. Hopefully, I will cross my two fingers, my two-hand finger, but it will be released on June 2026. So we will have a good overview of what should be included as a MRV and project developer. On the Quebec side, we have a cap and trade system linked with the Californian market, but I won't be discussing that specific scheme. I wanted to highlight the protocol that we released in 2024. And again, I'm not working at the government, but we released an offset protocol inside the cap and trade scheme, and it's afforestation and reforestation on private lands. And I know it's more about forestry project, but we integrated also in that protocol some agroforestry practices. So they are eligible under that protocol. But since 2024, what we observe is that no project has been using that protocol because it's a high integrity, high scientifically super robust, but it's so robust that it's economically hard to find that viability for a project developer. So that's what we observe in the field level. And in 2021, I don't want to make too much time, but Alberta had a conservative cropping protocol, but in 2021 they stopped that protocol because under the additionality, because there were already a lot of conservation tillage in Alberta, so they decided to withdraw this protocol in Alberta. So you see that we have that federal level and the provinces also that has their own protocol. So we call it the subsidiarity principle in the sense that if a province has their own methodology, the project developer working inside that province will use the province methodology, so the regional or the local methodology that was built by the government. If there is no protocol in the province, for example, the ALM protocol that is building at the federal scale, and we don't have that protocol in Quebec, so the project developer that is based in Quebec could use the federal protocol inside Quebec project. But if in Quebec, we would have ALM protocol, then the ALM protocol would be used in Quebec. So that's how the subsidiarity is interacting in between each provinces and the federal level. But now that's the scheme in Canada. But in reality, on the ground, what we are doing concretely with project developer in ALM. So we do have local initiatives. So we have a number of farmers that are working together, and they really want to enhance regional practices with agroforestry practices and so on. So I listed here one project. It's Carbone Riverain. It's a super local initiative with agroforestry scheme based in Quebec. And they developed their own methodology. So when my colleagues were talking earlier about the local methodologies, that's exactly what Carbone Riverain did. So they did a local methodology with a third-party university-related center, and they developed their own basis to calculate SOC and everything related to carbon. But in reality, for them, it's hard to sell the carbon because it's such on a local scale. So it's difficult to, in the end, find buyers for their credit. Now, what we observe also, it's on the voluntary carbon market. We gained some traction in Canada around the voluntary carbon market because if you want to go fast and if you want to not wait I was talking about the federal protocol, if you don't want to wait the federal protocol to be released, so several project developers are starting to use the voluntary carbon market, such as VM042 as a methodology. And as I mentioned, at the end level, we have the governmental level. But since 2024, as I mentioned, I haven't seen any agroforestry project using the afforestation and reforestation protocol, and not even for a forestry protocol. So you can see a little bit where we are going with the protocol. So finally, I just want to emphasize that it's complex. It's a complex system. We need, in the end, some what we observe in Canada with the framework, the federal framework and the governmental framework are quite rigorous, and they are there to support a higher price, and the buyer at the end will rely a lot on what the government is publishing. But what we observe also is that it takes time to produce some protocol. For the afforestation one, it took 8 years to produce. So in reality, the project developer wants to start the Region Ag right now and start to put in place some practices that will help farmers right now, because one of the bottlenecks is the economical, they want to help financially the farmers. So we see some initiatives such as the CANZA, the one here, Canadian Alliance for Net Zero Agri-Food. So that's I would say at a Canadian level. So there are more than 20 different stakeholders, and they want to really grasp the net zero in the agri-food sector. So we tend to see more initiatives such as the CANZA, or at a smaller scale also, Agrocarbone Grande Culture in Quebec. So if you have interest, or we will continue in the panel, but I will be more than happy to share more insight in Canada. Thank you.
So thank you very much to all our speakers. If I can invite you to take place at the panel, and you can put also the last holden slide during the conversation. So we structured this presentation in a way to take you kind of in a journey, starting from the technical foundations of these schemes, then to local level, regional level, and even then to national level with our Canadian example. I hope you appreciated this journey. So let's take a step back then and go back to the technical foundation and of the methodologies and standards and the concept of robustness as well of these schemes. And we will start then with Ralph, that opened our session. Why create a regional scheme and compete with the big global schemes? Couldn't we just use those and adapt them to regional level? What do you think? We have a microphone. Well, apparently we're also online, so yeah.
It's important for the online part. Yeah, good. Why compete? I think there is a few specific advantages that we will be trying to make good use of for regional carbon scheme. First of all is the specificity. So we have access to local knowledge, local data, local experience. So you can actually go from very generic to rather local conditions, both in terms of calibrating models, etc. Not just carbon, by the way, also biodiversity and other, I don't like the term, but I'm going to use it anyway, co-benefits. And I think that's the next one. The one thing that we've observed, and we will see how the CRCF harmonization will change that, because a lot of the things I showed will be different in 1 or 2 years from now, because of course all the schemes will adapt to CRCF and improve. But I think one of the possibilities we have here is co-benefits. It seems the market appreciates a lot co-benefits on carbon certificates, which means if we have the information and the data and we can quantify, the bet is that we will get high quality data and high quality certificates also on that level, hopefully highly appreciated by the market. It's also, you can create, we will try to create a local dynamic. We've seen it in other presentations as well. Connect local buyers with local sellers, new markets, new relationships. It's not really about food sovereignty, but it might also feed into that political objective a little bit. You can also create, I think it's more flexible, because for us, actually, the international carbon market is kind of a plan B. The plan A could be a local market with a bit of a higher price, with additional motivation to pay this higher price by local buyers, which could be a win-win. And only if the demand is not there, we would probably go to international markets and then go to the accept the market price, etc. So I think local specificity, additional incentives that you probably don't get necessarily through the generic schemes. And maybe one last point would also be the the farmer support. I think, I mean, the incentive here is really to support the farmers and to get the transition into place. So you can combine it perhaps with local and regional subsidies, blended finance, et cetera, So all this goes together. So the idea is it's not just some certification, it's interoperable between different financing mechanisms as well. So it's kind of gaining a little bit of extra control over things and make it a little bit more versatile than just offsetting.
Thank you. And you mentioned about the trust, how to bring farmer on board. And I think, Sam, you talk a little bit about how do we build this trust with the farmers. It's really a crucial element of your initiative. So can you tell us a little bit more about how you're building this trust between you have farmers, you have buyers and intermediaries in your project?
Yeah, I already mentioned it indeed in my presentation that in the project that we have, the farmers and the buyers, they meet up to see, okay, who are we actually, who are the farmers? I think a lot of times, at least in the Netherlands with limited space, a lot of ideas, big ideas, they end up on farmland, building houses, etc. But to actually show what farmers can do in relation to big companies who produce all kinds of things. A few weeks ago, I was at one of these meetings, and the companies, the buyers of the credits, they were really happy to be working with farmers because they have zero. The products that they use have zero relation. It was a technical company, but they said now we have this relation with farmers, and you have shown us our numbers, the amount of carbon that we sequester. So, in this way, the trust is built. So yeah, in that way you can establish it. So see each other face to face, show what you are doing. Also, the farmers show interest in what the companies are doing, vice versa.
In this conference, we heard a lot about the word scalability. So how do you see this? Now the trust is built locally. There is potential for you to scale. How do you see this maybe at a regional or maybe national level for you? How would that work? I don't know if you have any plans to do so.
Yeah, that's the big question indeed, the scaling up. The danger is, I think, if we would apply the CRCF levels on the project that we have, that it would come out very not as positive as the CRCF methods apply. But then, if I look at the buyers, the group of buyers that are buying the credits, they wanted to get more buyers into their pool, into their group, and they said, we are already starting now, so we know what it's about. We don't want to be lagging behind. I think a lot of companies are holding their breath and waiting for the right moment. But it's good to be on track with what's going on. So I think that's essential for a scale up, both for the buyers and the farmers.
To really identify the right stakeholders that are willing to jump and then trust the system. Okay.
Exactly.
Maybe if I can go to Marcus. We saw in several examples, some are based on results-based versus practice-based, an hybrid type of approach. Which one appears to be most robust and suitable in your case was your regional scheme? Which one?
So first, in our case, the bank wanted to invest, and we are not generating credits. And so the bank also said they don't want to compensate somewhere else, so they want to do it in the regional and the region where they have the clients. So the farmers are also the clients of the bank. And so we were not in we did not have to generate a credit, so therefore the measurement was not that
Crucial.
set. So we could make a combination of participation and measurement. And what we learned is that the measurement is not that precise and the accuracy is not that high. So I would more go for a more measure-based, so what they are doing, if they are doing, and not the direct measurement itself.
So you didn't have a buyer pool, so there was no pool from the financial sector. But what about your farmers? How did they react to your data showing that the carbon is started to go down? How does that help with trust and entire scheme?
No, of course, that's on the one side from the scientific perspective and also organic farming. I think it's important to see that carbon is not staying forever. And of course, we are starting to discuss with them because we have quite a lot of interactions with them. So we have workshops with the farmers and so on. And we have a lot of discussions about soil organic matter and how to manage it. And then we are also trying to integrate carbon fractions, so to get a better understanding about what is stable and permanent or not permanent, and how does it relate also to plant nutrition and so on. And I think it's important that we have this communication between science and advisory and the farmers, so that really we have other benefits than just the payments. So I think it's on both sides. We learn a lot about how to have a sustainable land management. And so this additional money coming from in this case, the buyers, it also helps the sustainability in the region. So it's not only about the carbon, but also, and that's also for the bank was important that you have more adoption to the climate change, which will take place. And of course, we should also make clear that we have a limit of sequestration. So there is an upper limit. And so we will not continue to acquire or to store more carbon forever. And when we follow the projections, then it's quite likely that we'll lose carbon everywhere. And we are happy if we can maintain the same level.
Hopefully, there will be also a more positive outcome. We'll see how things progress. Yes, Lorenzo, I wanted to come to you indeed. No, I wanted to go with you first. And you spoke a lot about sustainable practices and all your different packages, etc. So how are you communicating this to farmers, and also the debate with, yes, sustainability, but also payment? So from an economic perspective, how your scheme will work?
They are eager. They are very eager to get money as soon as possible. This is the key question, because farmer condition is very poor now, not only in Italy, but in Europe. And so we have created a huge expectation, but to meet the promise will be very difficult. The communication is has to face a main difficulty, that the cultural level is not enough to transmit the message and to make possible to implement all the practices. We need a strong, independent advisory system entering the farms. We are a small group of old people going out more than on, and so we need a public, in my view, a public independent advisory system entering the farms, showing on the premises what we should do to make agriculture really sustainable. It's a huge effort. We try to start with an approach we called open farm, open protocol. What we have seen, we publish every year with a map, so any stakeholder can enter the farms and can look all year long, and he can check if we are saying the truth or not, because they can check after sowing, and they can see if the maize is like this in sustainable agriculture and very high in conventional agriculture. So any constraint, any problem can be seen with a very transparent approach. And this is the way we try to show that there is a potential and that they are doing. But we need to increase the cultural level of the technician, and because implementing sustainable agriculture is much more difficult than the conventional. But
so yeah, we heard a lot talking about the intergenerational problem, access to knowledge, etc. What are potentially other elements that are making difficult for you to keep your promise? What other elements you see? So you're already trying to solve the knowledge aspect. What are other elements that you foresee are going to be difficult for you to maintain the promise?
To maintain the problem is keeping long-term results. Because the key point in agriculture is that you can't change anything suddenly. Everything takes time, and nature is much stronger than you. You can't invent something. So you need to to have a long-term protocols to show, to improve, to disseminate the actual practices and how to implement them. And you needed to go on with the longer-term promise, with the long-term protocol. But at the same time, you needed to give support for a long time. And you know, the current approach is a short project, short advice, short, because you need to get the gain immediately. And this can't work in agriculture. It's the opposite. And that's the key point. We need young people to get trained very quickly, very motivated, young, and going in. But we are more or less 60 and over 60. So it's a cultural problem, and we need also decision makers support, convince support to the longer term implementation of credit carbon schemes.
Thank you, Lorenzo. This is definitely a long-term game. We also heard from Laurence the different timelines that the policy sometimes has, right? So from your perspective, so you brought us the example from Canada. What lessons can the EU draw from your example, from your Canadian example, at multi-level governance in nature-based carbon projects?
That's a great question. I would say, but it's easy to say, but break the silos, and in a sense that federal level is at this moment creating a soil enrichment protocol. And we had a discussion with the provincial level at Quebec, and they were asking for, but they were looking to build a soil enrichment protocol too. But if it takes again 8 years, could we merge? Can we do something together instead of building or recreating something new? So there's that break, the silo to be broken. To be broken. I think it's important in terms of timeline, because when we are discussing with the farmers in Canada, they want to act now. They want to be included in that change. But if we are waiting that long for that frameworks, does that make sense? Can we just use the federal one when it's going to be published, instead of thinking of recreating something on our end at a Quebec level? Because at this moment, that's what we are thinking of. We know that at a federal level, there will be a federal scheme, quite robust, but we are still interested to build our own. So in a sense, I'm just acting fast for the farmers.
Thank you. Yes, indeed, we heard a lot about the timeline of the CRCF, and probably that is contributing to uncertainty. But also what you're doing here, I think, shows how we are trying to break those silos and hear different perspectives from everybody. So I went through a quick run through of questions. We had many more planned for you, but given the time, I was keen to also give the space for some questions from the audience. Do you have any questions for our speakers? Yes, please.
You have to build your rice production area in the opposite. Is there any rice-related projects that you know of?
Yes, so for the online participants, the question was if in Catalonia there is also rice production in the Delta in the south, and if there are projects there. No carbon projects yet, and it will also not be the first crop we're covering because of the crop specificity. We are looking into that in more longer term. So I'm not aware of any carbon storage in rice, and it's quite complicated. The experimentation we do shows us, because you have to play around with watering and dry and water phases. And it seems that data show that biodiversity and carbon storage are antagonists. So you cannot have both at the same time, and you need a good trade-off balance between the two. So I think this particular crop looks like it's going to be a challenge for our protocol when we get there.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yes. Oh, plenty. So we start, that's with you, I think was the first hand I saw. Yeah, so we only have one, but yeah. So
Hello. So a question for Lorenzo in general to the audience. Many of the practices that you mentioned, of course, go in the direction of carbon schemes and so on, but sometimes could be in contrast to yield. So the reduction of fertilizers, minimum tillage, also the reduction of fertilizer of pesticides. What is your view in the evolution of yields and the guarantee of yields in the context that you just described?
Thank you, Daniel, for the question. The most famous question on the issue. The assumption is that we are going to increase yield potential of these fields because the potential is going down, and at the very beginning we can't get this, but slowly, and not the second year, we are increasing. Anyway, everything has a slow, a gradual implementation, and we don't want to reduce the nitrogen needed for the maximum production yield in that condition, because you can't get 115 tons everywhere. Somewhere you can get with 9 tons, sorry, no, 9 tons. So, but you can get this also replacing part of the nitrogen with bacteria, with cover crops. You have to have a holistic approach. You are fertilizing during your rotation, and when you have the crop asking for the maximum nitrogen supply, you have it there as a low release nitrogen. So this is theoretical, but the protocol try to meet your question, to give an answer to your question, having a general approach. About the pesticides, again, it's you have the solution in the rotation. You don't. We have to break the association problem pesticides. It's finished. We have a law, Directive 128/2009, still to be implemented in most cases, where you have to implement, firstly, prevention. That means that you can get the prevention increasing soil biodiversity. What are you doing while you are increasing your? It's everything to get connected. You increase carbon content of your soil, and you are increasing your biodiversity. You are making your ecosystem more complex. An ecosystem more complex is much more stable. That means that the risk of outbreaks is getting lower. It's a package, and so we have some positive data on this, but obviously it's very difficult. And I agree with you. Be calm, be prudent, but for sure. Science has already demonstrated this is the way. We have just to adjust to improve the package, but this is the way.
Marcus also wanted to add something, and then we some.
Yeah, I'll try to make it short. So we hope that in the long run, stabilization of soil organic matter will add resilience, and so will help to stabilize yields. That's the hope, but of course it's not proven.
I can add an example from the Netherlands. So I agree with you what you say. In the long run, the farmers experience with better soil organic matter, the yield will be more stable. That's so on the emphasis on stable. And also in, for example, the French fry industry, they are realizing that, for example, if we use the potato innovator, it's just a high demand of nitrogen. So it's basically up to them to say, okay, can we maybe choose another variety which needs less? So that's again the two parties that, but the circumstances during the growth season is one of the most important issues there for farmers.
two more hands up. Maybe you can take that.
Thank you so much. I have a question for all. So I think you have already said that, but I want to hear from the several experience that you have presented. So at least what I bring home is that the regional level, the regional scale or the provincial or the federal one seems to be very effective. At least you have some results, which might be some credits already sold or some co-benefits or at least some experiences. So, and this seems to be more effective compared to the European framework and the standardized baseline, because you really have a plot level or a very low scale understanding of the territory. So my question is, what are the advantages and also the disadvantages, considering, of course, the different system where you are, from your experience? And so would you recommend going for a regional scale rather than a European or a national one?
You read our mind. This was my last question. So I think we can close with this one. No, it's perfect.
So I like this regional approach, but in general, I think a harmonized thing for Europe is needed. And it's also going beyond carbon farming, especially for soil monitoring. I think that's even more important because now this redistribution of money, that's the nice part. But I think it's even more important to have environmental effects so that we have real improvement in land management. And for this one, we need a harmonized monitoring protocol. Yep.
And there's about the buyer, it's a market. And what the buyers are looking, it's at a local scheme. And I was impressed when Sam, you were referring at 140 euros. And I was, oh my, I wish we will never see that in Canada and Quebec. Because for us, the scheme, the governmental scheme would be where you have not necessarily the highest price, but where the rigor and the governmental, that it took so much time to build that protocol. So you know at least that it will be built on a scientifically based. But I'm not saying that it's not local or not scientific, but so it's in the end, as I mentioned, it's about the market and the buyer. And even here at the Carbon Farming Summit, we're lacking of buyer to integrate and to make that scale of the carbon farming. So, yeah.
I think a few things. If you look at local versus larger scale, local can be quicker. The level of trust is higher. And again, I think we can ask the 140 euros per ton of carbon because the costs for the farmers themselves are really high. So we have underlined that fact. So that's why the deal was struck. I do, however, think that larger scale provides, I have to say it's kind of a bummer, but not all the plots of the farms were included in these programs because there was not enough buyers. So a larger scale would open up the market for maybe the whole farm. So that would be the big benefit.
A lot of good things have been said. Maybe one thing is also, I'm not sure it's really that much competition between the two. I think they cater to different buyers or kinds of markets even, and they can also overlap and be complementary to each other. I guess those who are looking to like generalized international markets probably have different requirements or look for different things. And even sellers, I'm suspecting that some sellers of project certificates might actually not want to sell their certificates to just anybody. Just I'll leave it open, but what that exactly means. But there could be preferences, and I think the local markets can cater to that as well and create like new alliances and such. They have added value, and I think they're as much needed as probably the larger, more corporate focused markets.
Thank you. I think that the carbon credit regulation still already comprises all the pillars. They are listed in the regulation. So, and the regulation and the pillars are science-based. That means that you can have the adaptations, but the pillars are suitable for getting the results. This is my view. Just a very simple example. It's stupid that you leave your soil and bare for 9 months. You are giving up all the sun energy and you don't produce organic matter, biomass for months. The biomass you need for keep your soil yield production. And so this works everywhere in the world, also in Greenland, if Trump agrees, and everywhere can work. So and we can discuss about all the pillars. They can work everywhere. Science has already demonstrated this. You just need the adaptation. You can't use Vicha fava in Greenland, probably, but you can use another one. So the adaptation means to tailor the pillars according to regional conditions. But the pillars are those pillars. You have to produce biomass 12 months per year. You have to uptake the nitrogen leaching every day of your year, and so on, and so on, and so on. This is and in my view, this is the interest of farmers first. So the two things are going together. There is no opposition.
Thank you. Marcus, you asked for 30 seconds.
I hope 10. So I think most important part is that we have an effect for the environment. So it's always about money and who buys and who pays and so on. But for me, at least, it's important that we really have an effect either on the climate or for biodiversity and so on. And this should be proven and be possible. Otherwise, we could also spend the money somewhere else.
If I can respond now, we are just discussing, but in the end, the carbon farming and the carbon market should be an incentive to implement more regen ag practices. And to my view, and it would be to integrate in the end, so we don't need anymore this mechanism, this financial mechanisms in 2050, because all the farmers would have regen ag practices. So in the end, it's a financial incentive, because we still at a farmer level, we still rely on. There's an issue on economical incentive also to help the farmers, and carbon farming helps to have more regen ag.
Thank you. I would really encourage you to continue the debate during the break, and maybe some of our audience wants to join too. So let me thank our speakers, and I'll encourage you to keep talking to them and continue with your question during the break. Thank you so much. Thank you.